And after we take Lex Luger and the Giant, we want the gold, sucker. Hulk Hogan, we coming for you now.
I should point out,
WCW, just like any top wrestling company, has had their fair share of fails and bloopers over the years. Most notably during the last few years of WCW's existence, more things seemed to go wrong than right for the once beloved product. But which fails were they? Well, join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 10 of the worst WCW fails and bloopers. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists.
And I'm gonna look at the whole world, and I'm gonna say Vinny Fucci.
who?
Number 10, Kevin Nash's failed powerbomb on the Giant. The build match between Kevin Nash and the Giant at 1998's sold-out pay-per-view sounded great on paper. Nash and the Giant were two of the largest wrestlers in WCW, and the match was a dream match to many fans, so putting this match on a pay-per-view was a smart business decision from WCW. Unfortunately, the match is responsible for one of the worst fails in WCW history and could have resulted in a career shortener for the Giant, who would later become the Big Show in WWE. In the match, Nash would go for his trademark jackknife powerbomb on the Giant. However, Nash couldn't get him all the way up, so he would drop him mid-air and the Giant came crashing down on his neck. It was terrifying. Luckily, the Giant wasn't hurt, and according to Nash, he had reservations about executing the move, but the Giant insisted he did it and assured Nash that all would be fine. Nash also noted that the Giant began to throw it backstage but refused to go to the hospital, which indicated he suffered a concussion. He was kinda lucky that it was nothing more serious than that. Number 9, Chris Jericho almost dies. Now, the 1997 Halloween Havoc pay-per-view featured without question one of the scariest fails in WCW history. In a match between Chris Jericho and Guido, Jericho would go for a top rope Frankensteiner, a move that he was very comfortable in doing. However, on this occasion it resulted in Jericho landing right on his head. It looked absolutely brutal as a viewer, but somehow Jericho got up without showing any sign of damage. In Jericho's book A Lion's Tale, he implies that his opponent possibly messed up the move intentionally as he was upset about the booking of the match. However, this has never been confirmed by anyone other than Jericho himself. Number 8, the blood misses Kevin Nash twice. It's well established that WCW in 2000 was a complete disaster. There's perhaps not a better example of this than the feud between Kevin Nash and the New Blood. During an episode of Thunder, Nash would be standing in the ring and a bucket of blood was supposed to fall on his head. However, it completely missed Nash.
Now what?
It was made even worse by the fact that the crowd were completely silent, as if they expected WCW to mess up at this point. To make things worse, the exact same thing happened just 2 weeks later. When Nash was about to perform a jackknife powerbomb on the entranceway, the blood was supposed to once again land on his head, but yet again it missed him completely. It was like someone was doing this on purpose to rib Nash, but ultimately it came down to WCW's clear incompetence. Number 7, Rick Steiner gets dropped on his head.
With a knife edge jab, it stunned him. On top.
And wrestling fails can occur at any time. There was a brutal one on the episode of WCW Nitro in December 1997. During a match between Scott Norton and Rick Steiner, Norton would go for a power slam on Steiner. However, a miscommunication resulted in Steiner being spiked right on his head. It looked terrifying, but luckily Steiner was okay. In typical WCW fashion, they decided to replay the mistake as if it was actually part of the match. The legend Bobby Heenan would audibly react to the mistake on commentary with the simple line of,
Back in the locker room, in the wrestlers.
Implying that Steiner needed clear medical attention. Number 6, high risk, no reward. High risk moves aren't called high risk for no reason. Just ask Billy Kidman, who perfected the shooting star press during his time in WCW, but on one occasion it nearly ended in a serious injury for the former Cruiserweight champion. During a match on WCW Nitro in 1999 between Kidman and Lord Steven Regal, Kidman went for his trademark shooting star press only for his knees to land on the ring ropes and messily crashed right to the floor. Luckily, Kidman didn't land on his head and appeared to be fine, albeit slightly dazed. It was clear that an audible was called at the time and Eric Bischoff entered the ring to check on Kidman, and you could see Regal whisper something to Kidman, which Kidman responded to by rolling Regal up for the 1, 2, 3. Number 5. Hulk Hogan's Fireball Disaster. One of the most talked about matches in WCW history was the 1998 Halloween Havoc encounter between Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. The idea behind it was to reenact their iconic WrestleMania 6 matchup. Unfortunately, the match is well established for being one of the most disappointing pay-per-view matches in history, as the match was filled with mistakes, miscues, and general sloppiness. One of them involved Hogan failing to throw a fireball in Warrior's face. Hogan was supposed to set a piece of flash paper on fire, which would result in a fireball being thrown in Warrior's face, but Hogan simply couldn't set the flash paper alight. To make matters even worse, he would manage to burn himself and burn his hands and facial hair in a truly disastrous spot. Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer newsletter would reward the match -5 stars out of a possible 5 stars. This is the worst rating a wrestling match could possibly get, and the worst rating for any WCW match in the entire history of the promotion. Number 4. Brian Pillman Bobby Heenan Incident. A Clash of Champions 32 in '96 featured a match between two wrestling legends. They would be Brian Pillman and Eddie Guerrero. Now, although the match delivered, the talking point of it was actually an interaction between Pillman and the legendary Bobby Heenan. During the match, Pillman would grab Heenan by his neck, and this was supposed to be in line with Pillman's loose cannon gimmick, which Pillman was using at the time. But the issue here was that Heenan had just had neck surgery, and someone grabbing him by the neck was completely reckless. The story goes that nobody informed Pillman that Heenan was on the no-touch list. Heenan would respond to Pillman by shouting out,
No, what the fuck are you doing? Easy.
Heenan would later apologize on air for his language, and everything seemed to be okay between the two men. Heenan would later reveal in an interview that he mainly put the blame towards WCW for not informing Pillman of his neck surgery and how he simply couldn't take any form of physicality. Additionally, Heenan stated that he didn't know it was Pillman at first and initially thought it was a fan grabbing his neck, which would explain the sudden outburst. The at the time WCW president Eric Bischoff would discuss the incident on his 83 Weeks podcast and will reveal,
No, he said, what the f- are you doing on live television? Now, we probably had a 5-second delay or a 7-second delay, so we might have been able to cover that. Watching it back, you clearly heard it. Bobby, and you could see his anger, his fear, more than anything, really showed. Camera was on him. They did what they should have done. They're catching it as it's happening. And then Bobby came back. But if you watch Bobby throughout the rest of the night, every time somebody got near that announce table, there was one point when I think Giant had Hogan outside of the ring, or they were outside next to the announce table, and Bobby, as soon as he saw them coming in his direction, on goes the jacket, he goes around. As soon as they left the announce table area, Bobby came back and sat down again. So it clearly had a big effect on Bobby, but it was live TV, and it's unfortunate because it was real, and it was real fear on Bobby's part because of a real injury, but it also made for really good television.
Number 3. Goldberg puts his hand through a car window for real. Now, although Goldberg was one of WCW's biggest stars, there was always a sense that Goldberg took himself far too seriously as a wrestler, and his serious injury in late 1999 was a clear indication of this. On an episode of Thunder, Goldberg would chase the NWO limousine in the backstage area and was supposed to smash the window of the limo with a metal pipe. However, for whatever reason, Goldberg decided to put his forearm right through one of the windows. It sliced Goldberg's artery and the cameras would stop rolling as he needed to get to the hospital as soon as possible, or he could have bled to death. Goldberg would miss 5 months of action thanks to his reckless act, and this couldn't have come at a worse time for WCW as they needed somewhat of Goldberg's star power on their roster during an incredibly difficult time for them creatively and financially. Number 2. Sid's promo. Sid Vicious has never been known for his promo ability, and one promo that fans associate with Sid in WCW would be his promo that he cut back in November of 1999. Sid would have a promo exchange with Kevin Nash to build towards their Powerbomb match at 1999's Starrcade pay-per-view. And during the match, Sid would utter the line, "See Nash, you can wear any Halloween costume you want, but you know and I know that you're only half the man that I am, and I have half the brain that you do." The line was so nonsensical that Nash, along with Scott Hall, actually burst out laughing in the ring for real. According to Sid himself, WCW actually wanted him to say a completely different line, but Sid believed that line made him sound stupid. Confusingly enough, he went with this one instead.
And I have half the brain that you do.
And number 1, the debut of the Shockmaster. Oh boy, you know this one was coming. Now, the Shockmaster's debut in WCW has been coined as wrestling's most infamous debut due to how much of a fail it was. And for those who aren't aware, the Shockmaster was portrayed by a wrestler who went under the name of Typhoon and Tugboat during his time in the WWF, and in 1993 he decided to sign for WWE's rival company, that being WCW.
Hey, Warrior!
You klutz! Oh, but a lovable klutz, I must admit.
Their plans were for him to debut as the Shockmaster and make a dramatic entrance on the Flair for the Gold, which was an interview segment hosted by wrestling legend Ric Flair. But of course, it didn't go to plan. In the segment, Sting and the British Bulldog would be confronted by Sid and Harlem Heat, who wanted to know the identity of their partner for their upcoming tag match. Sting then stated, "All I have to say is our partner is going to shock the world, because he's none other than the Shockmaster." The Shockmaster crashed through the wall wearing a Stormtrooper helmet which was covered in silver glitter. He will fall right on his face, with the helmet awkwardly stumbling right off his head. It was believed that the Shockmaster tripped over a piece of wood that was next to the set, which forced him to trip. The wrestlers were gobsmacked, and Sid even mumbled,
I told you. Oh, God.
but to be honest, the best reaction was from the Bulldog.
So flat in his ass. Oh, man. Flat in his ass.
But there you have it, guys, 10 of the worst WCW fails and bloopers. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.